Hello, my daring viewers. Before the terror begins, I've got one request. Hit the like and subscribe button and share this video. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and let me know what you think of the story. Let's get started. In 2015, when I was 23, I had used an online classified site to find a roommate to share my apartment with. Back then, I think it was pretty normal to be using that site for finding roommates and whatnot. There were not really any other sites to do so on, and it was not misused as much as it is today. I posted a listing with some pictures of my place and made sure to say that I was looking for a roommate ideally close to my age. After only a few days, I got a response from a woman named Isabel. She said she was also 23 and still in college. And from everything we talked about on the phone, she seemed pretty similar to me, and like we might actually make good roommates. So I arranged to have her stop by and tour the place. When she did, everything seemed great. Isabel liked the place and we agreed on a price, and within a week she had moved in with me. I will say I did notice that she did not quite look her age. She was a bit taller than me and just had a more grown-up, older look to her. I figured it was nothing, though that she just happened to look a bit older than her age. Anyway, the first few days went by, and we did not really have much time to get comfortable with each other yet, as I had work and she had college and work as well. It was the 5th day after she had moved in that I got home from work and entered the apartment around 10 p.m. As soon as I opened the door, I heard footsteps rushing through the hallway, and then a door slamming closed. Confused, I dropped my bag down and went over to look down the hallway that led to both of our bedrooms. Her door was closed and the light was on in her room, but my door was open. I knew I had closed it before leaving, so I thought that was pretty weird. I definitely was not comfortable with her poking around my room. If that is what she was doing, I went in and closed the door behind me. After checking around, nothing looked out of place or like it had been looked through, so I figured it was nothing and just went on with my night. I settled in and watched TV for a bit. In my room, I did not hear Isabel in her room at all for a whole hour, so I thought she was probably just sleeping. She had mentioned before that she liked to go to bed early. However, while watching TV, I happened to glance at my bedroom door just out of habit. But I noticed something weird. There was a shadow under the crack in the doorway. She was standing behind my door. She was not moving. How long had she been standing there for? Isabel, her still did not move. I called out again, "Isabel, are you out there?" Several quiet seconds passed until the shadow slowly moved. Leaving from behind the door and walking down the hallway, I heard her bedroom door slam shut behind her. That got my heart pumping for a moment. What was she doing? I locked my door after that and stayed up just a bit later than usual, but eventually went to bed. In the morning, I passed by Isabel in the kitchen and kindly brought up last night, just asking if she needed something. She smiled and said everything was good, ending the conversation right there. It was odd for sure, but I just moved on, not wanting to make things bad between us so soon into her moving in. Isabel left soon after, and a few hours later I went to work. I got home around the same time as last night, about 10:30, walking into a quiet and dark apartment. All the lights were off even in her room, so I assumed she had already gone to bed. I quietly walked into my bedroom and closed the door, trying not to wake her. After a short video call with one of my friends, I got in the shower to wind down for the night, planning to go to bed right after. While I was in there, I could have sworn I heard something from outside my room. I even lowered the water pressure for a second to listen, but not hearing anything else, I continued my shower as usual. Once I was done, I got out and dried off. But when I looked out the doorway into my room, the door to the hallway was open. I quickly got dressed and looked into the hallway. All the lights were still off, and Isabel was not making any noise in her room. I was honestly creeped out now. I closed the door and locked it. What is really odd is that I was almost sure that I had, without thinking, locked the door when I got home and went into my room. Obviously now I assumed I'd just forgotten to, but definitely was not going to forget anymore. But why did she even open my door in the first place? Did she even open my door? The whole place was still dark and quiet, as if she never left her room and was just sleeping. What the hell was going on? I stayed up for another hour, trying to watch TV and calm down, but still pretty shaken by what was happening. I just did not know Isabel enough to really understand any of this, or know what to do. I kept trying to tell myself it was something harmless, like she tried to come in to ask me something but saw I was in the shower and just left. But that still does not explain any of the other things that have happened. After that hour, I knew I had to get some sleep, so I shut everything off, crawled into my bed and closed my eyes. It felt as though as soon as I closed my eyes, I opened them back up, knowing that I had fallen asleep, but only for a short amount of time. Unsure why I had woken up, I rolled over and looked around. The room was pitch black and the apartment was quiet, not even any noise from the neighbors. Just the silent creaking of the old building, but through the dark I could tell that the door to my room was cracked open. Maybe just a few inches, but that did not change how instantly scary it was. I knew without a doubt I had locked it this time, and even creepier, I never heard it open. "Isabel," I called out in a soft voice. The silence of the place almost felt like it was getting louder, making me more nervous. As the seconds passed, I sat up. I was just staring at the crack in the door, focused on the darkness between it, feeling like someone was watching me through it. But as my eyes got used to the dark, I looked around the room again. In the corner, I could see her figure standing near my closet. She did not move or speak, just faced me and stood in the dark. As each second passed, I felt my heart beating faster and faster, until she suddenly took a step forward. I still could not really see her well, but I could make out the general shape of her face, and she had this blank, dead stare, like she was looking through me. She took another step, then suddenly ran across the room and into the hallway. A second later, I heard her bedroom door slam shut. After a moment, I grabbed my phone and car keys, then sprinted to the front door and exited the building. I know she technically did nothing to me, but I was absolutely terrified. I did not even want to stay in the parking lot, worried she would run out looking for me. I drove to a nearby area and parked, then called the police, hoping to figure out what was going on with the safety of officers around. It took about 15 minutes for the police to make it to the apartment. By then, Isabel was gone, took most of her belongings and just disappeared. It was then, as we tried to contact her and figure out who she was, that we realized all the information I had on her was faked. Even her name did not match up, and her phone number was for a prepaid throwaway phone. It had no name or identity attached to it. Like I said, this was in 2015, so even a decade later, I have never heard from or seen her again, which makes me think she likely had some really creepy plans had I stayed roommates with her any longer. There is a lot of questions and pretty much no answers. After that, I moved apartments, worried that the woman might come back when I least expect it. This happened during my early 20s. I used to live in a small house with a group of 3 other men. We had not truly known each other before moving in together, but we had all attended the same college and graduated at the same time. So with all of us seeking a place to live afterward, it simply fell into place. By splitting the rent 4 ways, we were able to afford a relatively modest house on the more rural outskirts of the city. Anything closer was a bit too expensive. Everything proceeded smoothly for the first 9 months or so, but quite suddenly, 2 of the men decided to move out, leaving just myself and Ken. Unfortunately, Ken was the only one of the 3 whom I did not really talk with much. He was always working or returning home late, or simply not interested to socialize with the rest of us. So it was rather unfortunate that it was the other 2 who left. It also meant we had to pay double the rent between the 2 of us. This was not a workable arrangement, and we agreed that at the end of the lease, in 3 months, we would go our separate ways and leave the house. For the first month after the 2 left, it became very clear how absent Ken was. On all my days off, I was often at home, simply relaxing all day and night by myself, which was a stark contrast to when the other 2 lived there. I did not care too much, if anything. It was pleasant having the place entirely to myself, but I did think it was odd that he was out for such long times all the time. He only worked part-time in the mornings, but I figured he must have been out with friends all night, every night. However, one night I happened to stay up a little later than usual. I was sitting in my room, and it was maybe about 1 a.m. when I saw headlights shine through my window, pulling down the gravel driveway. Then I heard the front door open. I got up and for some reason felt like saying hi, just to prevent things from becoming too distant and awkward between us. I opened my bedroom door but was somewhat startled as I heard his footsteps begin rushing down the hallway. When I stuck my head out, he jumped as if I had caught him in the act of something. The lights were off in the hallway, so I could not see him too well, but I could see that his eyes were wide and his body was frozen, just outside of his bedroom door. "What is up, Ken?" "Just seeing how you are doing," I said to break the silence. The way he just stood there in the dark hallway with his wide open eyes and looked at me was kind of chilling. "I am good," he muttered. There were another few seconds of silence before I just nodded and stepped back into my room. Well, that definitely did not help make things any less awkward between us. Why was he acting so strange, hurrying to his room, and all I did not want to be nosy, but it kind of had me concerned. After a couple of minutes, I opened my door carefully and quietly walked down the hallway. I just wanted to listen for a second as I passed by his room and nothing more. But when I did, I heard him moving around wildly, like he was opening and closing drawers messily. It was so odd that I stopped walking for a second and leaned a bit closer to his door. The chaos continued, making me feel really uneasy until it suddenly went quiet. Everything stopped like he just froze. As the seconds started to go by, I got increasingly more uneasy and wanted to get out of that hallway. But before I could even move, the door suddenly swung open. Ken stood in the doorway with the same wide open eyes as before, staring right at me. In an effort to cover for myself, I said I was just heading to the kitchen and asked if he wanted anything. Ken quietly muttered, "No," then closed the door on me. It was honestly really creepy and only made me feel more like something was going on with him. I went into the kitchen to follow through with what I said, then went back to my room. He was quiet for the rest of the night. For the next probably 5 or 6 days, I found myself more attentive to what Ken was up to. I would stay up until he got home, always feeling too uncomfortable to sleep, until I knew he was in his room and up to nothing. During those days, he remained in that disturbing, almost zombie-like state that he was in that one night. His eyes grew increasingly more restless every day, and he spoke no more than a couple of words, always hurrying into his room, until one night after he got home, and as I was in bed trying to sleep, a knock came from the other side of my door. It scared me. I never heard him walk down the hallway to my room. I got up and opened the door. He had that same look with restless eyes, but had a half smile as well. He mentioned that he just got home and thought he dropped his wallet somewhere, out in the driveway as he was walking up to the door, asking if I had a flashlight and would help him find it real quick. I found it strange. Like he had never asked anyone for help before, or really to do anything with him. Although I thought it was odd and I was tired, I thought maybe this was a chance to make things better. So I grabbed a flashlight and followed him out to the driveway. He started up some small talk, just asking about work and stuff. As we started walking on the gravel and looking around, I noticed almost right away that his car was parked really far down the driveway though, like all the way at the end, for seemingly no reason. So if he walked all this way, we had to do the same to look for his wallet. We got all the way down to his car, and I never spotted anything on the ground. But then he started leading me away from the car. I was still shining the light around, but realizing there was no reason his wallet should be way out here. Away from the driveway, I asked what we were doing. Ken took a few seconds to respond, like he was thinking before saying he went for a short walk out here earlier, so he could have dropped it. But I did not really believe him. He kept trying to lead me further from the driveway and deeper into the woods. Every time I said we should turn back, he would repeatedly try to convince me otherwise. It got really suspicious really fast. I felt my nerves building up. "Here, you could take the flashlight. I'm going to head back to the house. I've got to be up early for work tomorrow anyway," I said as I tried to hand over the flashlight to him and make my exit. He did not take it though. His clearly fake smile faded and his restless eyes looked more than disappointed. He looked angry. He did not respond, but the tension was making me really uneasy. After a few seconds, I turned around and started quickly walking away from the woods. I looked back a couple of times, seeing Ken just standing there and watching me. As soon as I got to the house, I started packing. I did not know what that was, but I did not feel safe with him at all. I did not sleep the whole night listening to make sure Ken was not up to anything else, but he never came back to the house that night. In the morning, I got everything important stashed into my car and left. Even years later, I never heard anything from Ken or figured out what was going on. His behavior was not normal, and I honestly think he was planning to do something horrible in the woods that night. For 2 years, I shared a modest home near the university campus with my college roommate Marcus. Despite having been roommates in college for a year, prior to this, we were still not particularly close. We simply had similar post-graduation plans, so living together made practical sense for the time being. The first year or so went very smoothly. We grew considerably closer and enjoyed living together enough to renew our lease for another year. This incident occurred in June, 2 months after we had renewed the lease. After a normal late night at work, I returned home and talked with Marcus for a while. Then we both decided to end the night and went to bed. However, in the middle of the night, I woke up to the clear creaking of floorboards in the hallway. The sound suggested slow movement towards the main living area of the house. I rolled over and checked the clock, seeing it was 3 a.m. I thought Marcus was just getting some water or something, I do not know. At that moment, I did not care either and simply went back to sleep. In the morning, I had to leave for work early, so I was rushing a bit, but Marcus opened his door, looking tired, and asked me something I was not expecting. He asked about what I was doing, walking around the house in the middle of the night. I was immediately taken aback. I said I was not, but had thought I heard him moving around. The conversation basically ended there, with both of us confused by what we had each apparently heard, as I had to leave for work. Honestly, I thought our floors or walls must have just been creaking from the wind, hitting the house or something, if it truly was not Marcus. When I returned home, Marcus was at work, so I spent most of the night simply relaxing in my room. And eventually, around the same time as the previous night, I went to bed. But then again, I woke up around the same time to the floorboards making that same creaking sound. This time, rather than going right back to sleep, I tried to listen more carefully. It sounded exactly like someone slowly walking through the hallway and into the living room. Once they reached the other side of the house, I could not hear anything for about 30 seconds and decided to get up and investigate. I opened my door and walked down to the living room, but Marcus was not there. As far as I could tell, there was nothing there that could explain what I heard. I went back to my room and went to sleep. What I found so strange about it was that the sound moved through the house. If it was just the house creaking, why did it slowly move through the house like that? I mentioned it to Marcus in the morning, and neither of us could come up with any explanations. Marcus was off this day, but at 2 p.m. I had to go to work. I did not return to the house until nearly 11 p.m. When I did and walked down the hallway to my room, I was surprised to see Marcus still awake. I just saw him in the corner of my eye, sitting on the bed in his room. As I passed by the doorway, I called out, "What is up?" as I went over to my room. But Marcus did not respond. I thought it was kind of weird, but maybe he just did not hear me. So I continued into my room. I took off my work uniform and put on some regular clothes. I left my room to go to the kitchen and get some food, but I noticed Marcus, his light was off in his room now. When I passed by, I looked in just to see if he was all right. He was still sitting on his bed in the corner now, just in the dark, so I could barely see him. "Hey, what is up, Marcus? You all right?" I called out. After a few seconds of him not responding, I just left the doorway and went to the kitchen. This was definitely strange, but I did not know what else to do. Obviously, I was not going to just march into his room for no reason, just so he would respond to me. But it did seem really odd. He did not at least just say hi or whatever. I was in the kitchen for maybe 15 minutes, then headed back to my room. Marcus, his door was closed when I passed by. For a whole hour I stayed in my room, but then I heard that sound, the floorboards creaking right in the hallway. I looked over and suddenly something moved under the door. I listened to the creaking continue. But with my last couple of interactions with Marcus being weird, I figured I would just text him this time to ask if it was him walking around. I waited a couple of minutes. Then I finally got a response. Marcus sent me a question mark, then followed up with, "What do you mean, I'm not home right now?" My face went pale and my eyes shot over to the door. I got up and hurried into the hallway. No one was there, but the door to Marcus, his room, was now open again. I quietly stood there and listened, but did not hear anything. I walked over and looked through the doorway. Standing in the center of the very dark room was an unknown man. Even in the dark, now that he was closer and standing up facing me, I could tell he was taller and had a thick beard, two distinct features different from Marcus that I could not see before. Without any more delay, I ran out of the house. I called the police, immediately standing on the other side of the road.
When they got there, whoever that guy was gone. Strangely, there were no signs of where he entered or exited the house from a window that was partially unlocked, but it did not seem to have been opened recently. What is really disturbing is knowing that he was likely the cause of the creaking floorboards for the last several days in the middle of the night, meaning he was inside walking around the house while we were sleeping. Even more creepy is trying to figure out why he was in Marcus's room just sitting on his bed and apparently waiting for something oddly in the last few days. That was the one day that Marcus had off and that I worked, meaning Marcus would be alone pretty much all evening. This makes me think the unknown man somehow knew this and was waiting to catch Marcus off guard while he was alone. This would explain why the man was in Marcus's room waiting and why he did not do anything to me. But fortunately, Marcus happened to go hang out with a friend for most of the night. Whatever the case, we probably will not ever know the man, his true intentions, unless it is too late.